Okay, so you guys have really outdone yourselves this time. AI designing chips, specifically Google's AlphaChip. I gotta
Yeah.
say, even before we get into the nitty-gritty, just hearing about this was mind-blowing. Like, are we witnessing the dawn of a new era or what?
Yeah, it's definitely a game changer, right? I mean, for the longest time, chip design has been this incredibly complex field. You practically needed a PhD just to understand what was going on.
Totally. And even then, progress has always been notoriously slow, even with all those brilliant minds working on it. But when I saw this AlphaChip thing, how it's using AI to potentially design chips faster and better, well, let's just say my curiosity was officially piqued.
Well, imagine this, trying to build a miniature city, but we're talking microscopic scale, smaller than your fingernail. And it's not just buildings, it's roads, power lines, everything meticulously placed. That's essentially what chip design is.
Wow, I never thought about it like that. It's like a tiny, intricate puzzle with millions, even billions of pieces. No wonder it takes forever. And they're saying this AI can do it better and faster than us humans. All right, you've got my attention.
That's the claim Google is making. Their research suggests that AlphaChip can whip up chip designs in a matter of hours, designs that would take human experts months to put together. And it's not just about speed. They're saying it could be even more efficient, more powerful than anything we've seen before.
I actually glanced through that Nature paper you sent over, and some of the stats are pretty wild. They're talking about alpha chip outperforming humans on power consumption, the length of the wires on the chip, which I guess makes a huge difference even meeting those insane timing requirements for how fast the chip runs.
And that's where things get interesting, because while the potential here is enormous, not everyone's sold on Google's claims just yet. This idea of exceeding human capabilities, well, it sparked quite the debate.
Oh, so it's a good old-fashioned tech mystery then. We've got this potentially revolutionary AI, but the jury's still out. Where do we even start with something like this? So we've got this potential AI superstar, AlphaChip, waiting in the wings. But like any good act, there are critics in the audience. Let's hear them out.
A research team from UCSD and NYU brought up some thought-provoking points. They noticed that in some tests, AlphaChip got a hefty dose of pre-training. Imagine cramming a computer's brain full of existing chip designs before even letting it tackle a new one.
Ah, so giving it a sneak peek at the answer key. Not exactly a fair fight then.
Well, it's more nuanced than that. Think of it like this. If you've only ever seen blueprints of houses, you wouldn't expect to design a skyscraper without any prior experience in that specific architectural style. And when they tested AlphaChip without this pre-training, the results were interesting, to say the least, not nearly as impressive.
So what's Google's explanation for this pre-training boost? Are they saying it's comparable to human experience?
That's essentially their argument. They say human experts don't start from scratch with every design. We tap into our years of accumulated knowledge, right? They also point out that with pre-training, AlphaChip excels at designing their own AI chips, the PPUs.
Okay, I can see that side of it. But isn't there a transparency issue here? If they don't share the exact data used to this pre-training, how can anyone verify their claims independently?
Now, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Without access to the same data and methods, it's like trying to bake a cake without knowing all the ingredients. You might get something edible, but will it be the masterpiece the recipe claimed?
Exactly. So we've got a potential transparency issue. And this leads us to even more skepticism, right? I'm seeing a paper titled Stronger Baselines. Sounds like a direct challenge to AlphaChip's throne.
Right you are. This research group decided to pit AlphaChip against some more traditional algorithms, specifically something called simulated annealing. Now, before you ask, no robots were harmed in the making of this algorithm.
Okay, good to know. But seriously, what is simulated annealing? It sounds like tad intense.
It's actually quite elegant. Imagine shaking a snow globe. At first, the snowflakes are all over the place, totally random, but as you gently shake it, they start to settle into a more ordered and efficient pattern. That's simulated annealing in a nutshell, finding the best solution within a complex system by systematically exploring different arrangements.
So no lasers or explosions. Just good old-fashioned computational shaking things up.
Precisely. And according to this Stronger Baselines paper, this simpler approach actually outperformed AlphaChip in several scenarios.
So does that mean we can hit the brakes on the AI hype and stick with what we know?
It's not quite that simple. Remember how we talked about chip design being like building a miniature city? Well, each new chip with its own set of demands and limitations is like designing a completely different city. AlphaChip might be a master architect for a certain type of city, but struggles when faced with a completely different environment. And that's where this whole domain adaptation concept comes into play.
Domain adaptation. Okay, you've dropped that term a couple of times now, and it sounds important. But my brain needs a little more hand-holding here. What exactly does it mean in this context?
Domain adaptation, right? It's one of those things that sounds super important, but also a tad intimidating. Can you break it down for us, mere mortals? All right, picture this. You've been driving for years in, say, a sleepy little suburb. You know, every roundabout, every traffic light sequence, you practically navigate by instinct. Then, boom, you're dropped right into the heart of Tokyo rush hour.
Oh boy, I don't think my parallel parking skills would cut it.
Exactly. All those instincts, all that experience, suddenly they don't translate the same way. Sure, you understand the rules of the road, but applying them in this new, chaotic environment, whole different ballgame.
Okay, now I'm seeing the connection. So, AlphaChip might be acing the suburban chip designs, but can it handle the high-stakes world of, like, a supercomputer chip?
You got it. That's the million-dollar question hanging over AlphaChip. Can it design any chip we throw at it, or is it limited to the environments it's already familiar with? That adaptability, that's the crux of domain adaptation.
And from what you're saying, this is where AI, even one as impressive as AlphaChip, stumbles a bit.
It's a major hurdle, and not just in chip design either. This whole idea of domain adaptation, it pops up everywhere. AI tries to flex its muscles.
Yeah.
How do we make these systems not just specialists, but adaptable learners? That's the golden ticket.
No easy feat. But stepping back for a second, even with the controversy, even with these domain adaptation puzzles, isn't it mind-blowing that we're even having this conversation? We're talking about AI designing the very brains of our technology.
Absolutely. AlphaChip, whether it fulfills every single promise or not, has ignited a fire. It's challenged our assumptions about what AI can tackle and forced us to rethink the entire landscape of design.
And this goes way beyond just chips, right? I mean, if AI can design a chip, what else can it handle? The possibilities seem endless.
You're talking about a potential paradigm shift. Imagine a world where AI designs not just faster chips, but things like ultra-efficient solar panels, life-saving drugs tailored to your DNA, even prosthetic limbs that feel as natural as the real deal. We might be standing at the very beginning of a design revolution.
It's almost too much to process. But it wouldn't be a true deep dive if we didn't talk about the flip side. What about the ethics of AI design? That's a whole other can of worms.
And a crucial one. Like any powerful tool, AI design comes with a huge responsibility. We need to be incredibly mindful of bias creeping into algorithms, making sure these AI design solutions benefit everyone, not just a select few. And then there's the question of human oversight. How do we ensure ethical boundaries when AI is calling the shots in design decisions?
It's not just about what AI can design, it's about what it should design. Those are some heavy questions to grapple with.
No easy answers there. It's going to take a global conversation, a true meeting of the minds between ethicists, policymakers, and tech experts to make sure AI design evolves responsibly.
A lot to unpack, to say the least. So if an AI can design a chip, what else can it design? And what will that future look like? We'll leave you with that thought. This deep dive might be over, but the conversation is just getting started.